Hey, everybody. Bobby Medina here with my very good friend, Paul Barron. And today we have a very special guest interview for you. He's a dear friend of mine. I've known him for a long time. He's a Latin legend. He's Grammy nominated recording artist. He is a great trumpeter, author, and an award-winning educator as well. Now he's performed, his bio goes for miles, so I don't want to spend all day here, but he's performed and recorded with such diverse and legendary artists as Quincy Jones, Diana Krall, one of my favorites, the Brothers Johnson, Lalo Schifrin, Rob McConnell, Gerald Wilson, just to name a few. And he also has produced a number of his own wonderful recordings with his own group, as well as the HMA Jazz Orchestra, which we'll talk about later on. And my family and I just spent the whole month of December listening to our favorite jazz album, which is his Latin Jazz Christmas CD. It's our family favorite. And he is in high demand as a soloist, a sideman, a band leader, clinician. And if that's not enough, he's also the jazz professor at UC Irvine. So welcome, Dr. Bobby Rodriguez. Thank you for being here.
Muchas gracias, Bobby. Thank you so much for having me. Paul, thank you for having me. And it's just a pleasure to be here. And you know what's exciting is to have this type of forum that you've instituted here to allow people to talk about trumpet and trumpet life and trumpet stuff, and not just high notes, but what it takes to, maybe play the high notes, live through the high notes, and continue playing at over 50, which, I'm barely 20 years over 50.
Well,
We've made an allowance to let you in, Bobby.
Thanks.
Well, great. It's great to have you here. And I'll let Paul throw out the first question.
Yeah, we were talking earlier, Bobby, and you have a new recording project out, and it's very exciting, especially meaningful during this time of transition and during COVID time and everything else that's been happening in the last few years. So if you'd like to share, we would love to hear more about it. There it is right there. Freedom.
Let me tell you something. This is the longest project I've ever done, because on all my other records, which are, I think, 12, I've been fine, healthy, and, gung-ho to go through the process of choosing the songs, the musicians, arrangements, blah, 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 and getting in the studio, recording, and you come out and here's your baby, and you get it printed, and it's over, and you get it out there, and you hope for the best. This record is different. In between, I had two major operations. A heart valve replacement. My aortic valve was replaced. Thank God it wasn't my valves on my trumpet, but my aortic valve was replaced, and that took a minute to work out. And that was last year. And then after that, I had a second operation, and that came out clean and fine, everything. But of course, there's recuperation time, and it takes a while to get yourself up and running. There was two things I asked my doc right away. I said, "Doctor, I've got a request. I got to ask you these two things because this is what is on my mind. One, when can I drive a car? Because if I can't drive a car, I can't move around, and if I can't move around, everything stops. And secondly, when can I play my horn?" Of course, doctors don't know who you are, and they don't really care about that. They just care that they're going to take care of you and do their job, which is happy for me, and then send me on my way. So it was, I think it was a 6-week period of no trumpet playing, no driving, certainly for about a month and a half, and I started playing my horn right away. As soon as I felt like I could, I started, starting with those baby long tones, just taking it easy, knowing that I'm not going to even go up on top of the staff. No, just stay down low. So finally, things started to feel better. And so I started playing. But so in the front of that, in the beginning of 2019, I went in and recorded the basic tracks for this record. which is called Freedom. And freedom to me is a very important word. We labored over this, my wife and I. Maybe you remember her, Bobby,
Oh
Yvonne,
yeah, absolutely.
percussion and stuff. Yeah. So we're still hanging in. We're still almost 30 years in together, and it's been great. It's been great. I could not have accomplished any of this without her. Certainly not. And so I went in and did the tracks, and then as you have to take your time dealing with building songs, I we decided to have this operation during the summertime, so it wouldn't affect my teaching schedule. And so we had our operation in July. So we did our tracks and we built up the songs a little bit, and then we stopped. Had the operation, had the recuperation, and we started thinking about, okay, let's get back to the work. And what's the name of the record? Shall we call it this? Shall we call it that? Shall we call it? And of course, all this time we had the build up to the presidential election, and there's a lot of polvo going around, a lot of dust, pushing around that. And so we finally came up with this idea of freedom, freedom something, freedom. There was an old song by Jackie McLean called "Let Freedom Ring," and it was a great record. I remember it well, but mostly I remember the name, Freedom. And so when we finally decided, and we went through 20, 30 titles, write them down, look at them. How does that look? I don't know. So we finally came to Freedom, and I had to actually really think about what it meant to me. And as I've grown from my 20s to 30s to 40s, all the different experiences I've had, and trying to improve my skills as I go, uh, I've learned that when you're playing in A minor, for example, which comes, of course, from Dorian mode, which comes from the G major, you're not limited to just 8 notes. You're not limited to just those 8 particular notes, or 9 or 10 or 11. You're not limited at all in any way. So listening to the great players, you know, the modern great players, Freddie Hubbard, Lee Morgan, and relatively modern, of course, their presence is consistently with me, constantly with me. And so listening to them and seeing how they move through changes and chords, I realize, and I've continually realized, that there's no limit on what you can do as you're moving through an A minor, for example. You don't have to use those 8 notes. You can use any notes. Yeah, you can use a C sharp right over an A minor as long as you know where you're going with it or moving through it. And the freedom of harmonic freedom, that's the first stamp that I wanted to put on the record, because in there, though some of the music is very it's beat oriented, pop oriented to some degree, there's a lot of very musical information there. 2 songs in particular. One is Mia's Lullaby, which I wrote for my granddaughter. She's 13 now. I wrote it when she was about 7, and that took 5 or 6 different involvements before I got to the core of what I wanted to say about this little girl, which of course beauty and kindness and sweetness, as we all know about our children. And the other one is Yvonne. So I've written songs for my wife, who's Yvonne, and uh, but this one had particular feeling, and I don't know why. And I wrote it as I was sitting there practicing one morning. I just came up with the idea of a augmented fifth. Do 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 do. So I'm thinking about how this chord was moving, and then how I was going to go to somewhere else, and then how to get back to this. And I knew the bridge was going to go to some kind of strange place. So I knew I wanted to hit the B flat. On horns, as we know, some of the intervals or some of the notes lay better for me on my horn and for you on your horn. So I knew I wanted to use these kinds of notes and this register, which is down on the bottom of the horn, because I played high notes, but I don't want to let anybody know that I play high notes because they might want me to play high notes, and I don't want. The last thing I want to do is to be known for playing high notes. No, I can play high notes, but I want to play them when I want to play them, not when the music says play that high note. No, I'm tired of that. So I wrote this beautiful song for Yvonne, and then I made a video of it. It's on YouTube, of course. I've made a strong attempt to put everything I have done onto YouTube, and because I think that's an incredible documentation of what we do. And of course, if there's a video, that's even better, because a video is it's a recording plus one. It never lies. It's just absolute truth. So I didn't make a moving video. I made a picture video with little paragraphs telling about her career uh, as long as we've been together for 30 years. Pictures of HMA in there, pictures of us when we were, just starting to date, and going through her career. And so I really enjoy this process of the documentation, which I actually learned through, the Hispanic Musicians Association. That was a very important part.
Right. And that's what the HMA stands for. Let's
That's
just
right.
clarify that
Yeah.
for everybody,
That's right.
which is his organization down in Los Angeles, which is how we met. I
That's right.
was honored to be able to play in that group many years ago for some time. And just to clarify another thing, you don't have to be Hispanic to be in that orchestra, because there have been people from all cultures and involved in there, but the
Right.
music happens to be Latin and jazz, some salsa, this and that. So
The bone I pick with a lot of organizations is that they stick to uh, a race, and I don't like that approach in my teaching. I don't care if the young person is a Latino or black or Hawaiian or Guamanian or from anywhere. They get the same treatment. We're moving towards a betterment of the music, and that's what it's all about. So the Hispanic Musicians Association made its bylaws, and it said it's not for Hispanics or Latinos, it's for anybody who plays the music. So that opens the door for anybody, anytime, anywhere, as long as they play the music. And of course, through the great lessons of Paul Lopez and others, we all learned more about Latin music.
oh, absolutely. It was life-changing for me. It really
It was
was.
a great time. Well, this freedom record is so important because the second point is that it's a social freedom. We have freedoms here in America that, as you travel around the world, and I've been fortunate, as many of you have, to move around the world, um, you see that it's not free like America. There's freedoms with cutoffs. There's restraints. There's limits. Well, in America, as long as you have enough money, you can do anything you want, and that, of course, is the caveat that we have to always adhere to. How do we make the money to be free? Well, that's where the struggle begins. You have to, better yourself. You have to have experience. You have to have knowledge. Schooling is always a good way to help yourself to to get better, to have more knowledge, to be more helpful, to understand a bigger picture. That's what education is all about. And little did I know that. I'm going to tell you a little story, Bobby. I don't think you know this story. When I was a little boy, about 7 years old, my mother walked me to grammar school, kindergarten, and Our Lady of no no that Rowan Avenue Elementary. It was a so she's walking me to school, She drops me off at school. They're preparing me. Oh, you're gonna have fun. Other kids. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be fun. Okay, okay. So they drop me off at school. She comes back. Half day later, 12:30, whatever it is. She comes in, grabs me by the hand. Okay, mijo, let's go. Come on, time to go. Okay, okay. So we're walking out the gate, and just around the corner, I look up at her and I say, Mom, tell the teacher I quit. Why, mijo? Why? You didn't like it? No, not really. I didn't like being there with all those kids and doing that stuff. And I'd rather stay home and just play baseball and watch TV and make myself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I wasn't into it, and I didn't understand what education was about. So to go from that concept of tell a teacher I quit to become a doctor of music, and my degree is in performance. I thought it was going to be an ethnomusicology because I was writing a lot and I had a couple of books already. But no, because my undergrad was performance, they have to match. So my master's was in performance, so then it has to match. The doctorate has to match. So my doctorate degree is not a PhD. It's a DMA, Doctorate of Musical Arts. That's
I guess I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that's the modern catch-all for a professional. And little did I want to be judged by anybody, because I was already like 50 something years old when I started to really think about finishing my education. And I didn't want to be judged by anybody, but I said, well, if this is what you got to do this, well, then you got to pay the price to get there. Well, you got to do what you got to do. So, and you spoke of the Canadian brass. You have one member here who's a member of the Canadian brass, I think.
Well, that's Ronnie Rahm. Yeah, a former member of it, one of the founders, I think, of it, actually.
My teacher at UCLA, where I received my doctorate, is Jens Lindemann.
Oh yeah,
he was one of the players in the Canadian brass too. That's where he came from, and he was a very sweet guy. He was very nice to me, and it helped a lot. And after our first lesson together, and he auditioned me. He actually auditioned me, and I played a couple classical pieces, and then I played Blue Moon solo just by myself. And his comment was, "This is a fine player. I think he's already complete. I'm not sure what I can help him with." So the very first lesson we had together, he says, "What can I help you with?" He was very respectful, very nice. And we talked about something or other. And then since that first meeting, we never had another lesson. We used to go down to a very nice restaurant and have some mojitos for lunch. And then he'd get his credit, I'd get my credit, and we'd move on with our lives. But he was very good to me and very nice. And it's very important that you have people in your life that respect what you do. I went to USC, and when I got there for the initiation of my master's degree, it was somewhat of a bumpy experience because it didn't feel like there was much respect given to the artist. And I was not at that time a child artist. I wasn't 25. I was already 45 or something like that. And so I guess I expected more out of the school to appreciate what I was bringing to the school too.
Well, especially after having world tours and performing all over with some of the biggest names in the music industry, you would think that.
Well, I would have hoped so, but it didn't work out that way. And so things don't always work the way you hope them to be. They work out the way they are. And so some friendships last, some friendships don't. So that's just the way it is. And so the statement on this recording for me, Freedom, is about that harmonic musical freedom of chordal information and improvisational information, and then also about the social information, about the freedom of America, because we were going to call it we had like all kinds of titles, but we were going to call it America. We were going to call it all kinds of names, but that sort of encompassed the whole concept. And then it was the personal freedom. And that's my last point about this title, freedom. It was the personal freedom that you have when you have certain elements built into your life. One, working. When you work and you make money, you have freedom. You have freedom to do this or do that. And then when children come along, you need money to support what they're into, what their dreams are all about, and whatever that is. So this record is very important to me, and 5 songs are about my family members. Little Henry is a very cute little song, man. It's a beautiful little song, and it's about my latest or the newest grandchild. Little Henry is his name. So that's very personal. But check this out. The second song on the record is called Jazz It Up. Now, Jazz It Up is a groove that I created, and I use that song every time I play a children's concert. So it's doom 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 doom. And so I tell a story, jazz music, it's America's music. It's over 100 years old. Jazz music. I say, jazz it up. You say, jazz it up. I say, jazz it up. You say, jazz. And so you get a friendship working right away with the kids, and you're hearing these little kids like 3rd, 4th, 5th, 7th graders, whatever, scream jazz music. And don't you love it? Yeah, we love jazz music. And those performances are some of the most pleasurable things I do. And I do a lot of them. Well, I did a lot of them before the shutdown, but I'm hoping to get back to it. I do 2 different organizations. I work through the Music Center of Los Angeles. I do a lot of performances through them. They book me out. They have an arm, an educational arm that presents different kinds of acts. I'm the jazz act, and we go out, a lot. And then I've got another organization that I work through, the LA Jazz Society, which we do 15 concerts every February. Didn't do them this year. We won't do them this year, doggone it. But we go to 3rd to 6th graders, and we play concerts for them. And every concert starts with jazz it up. I say jazz. I mean, every concert. So to actually get it down on a record, and it came out really good. I love it. And the
It's
other one
really
is
cool that you introduce all these kids to this music, because we
I
have
love
to
it.
keep it alive.
I
I've
love
been
it.
involved, and I know there's other members here that have school performances and things, and that we do need to keep that, especially with arts being cut and all these other things going on. We do need to keep it alive. And I love the album. I mean, it's just a wide range of musical styles on it, and
Thank you.
it's just fun. It's happy, and it's tender at different moments,
There you
and
go.
it's
Yeah.
exciting. There's some blazing playing on there going on as well.
Thank
Well,
you, Bobby.
will now just for our members here, they can purchase that where?
Oh, through me,
Through
Bobby
on your
Rodriguez.
BobbyRodriguez.com.
BobbyRodriguez.com, of course, or all the other, electronic mediums. All of them.
Okay.
CD Baby, of course, Amazon, Spotify. I
Yeah.
can't
Well,
think
we'll
of
make
all of
sure
them
we put
because
a
there's so
link
many
up.
of them now.
We'll put a link up to your
Thank you.
site. So, well, cool. Well, let's talk about something else for just a minute, because I think this is going to be really inspirational, and I hadn't thought about talking about it, but now that you mentioned it, I think I'm just going to go with it. And you don't have to go into a lot of detail, but with your health issues, we have a number of folks on this site, uh, regardless of their age and regardless of their gender, going through some issues. And I think it's nice to be inspired by people who have gone through rough times in their life and they've come out on the other end positively, as you have. So I'm wondering, you mentioned a little bit about it, but you took, and this was just for one of your operations, you had to take 6 weeks off
Yeah.
playing, but tell us a little bit about your getting back in, maybe rehabilitating your playing, things that, how
I'm
long
still
it
not
took.
back completely. I'll tell you, it
Mm.
takes a long time. And you have to know that. It takes a long time. My teacher, who was my last teacher and who was the best teacher and who showed me a lot about a lot of things, Yuan Racy, he says, you don't get better fast. You get better slow. Slowly, slowly, slowly. You don't even know that you're getting better until you come out the other side. So you have to put in a lot of work and believe. Talk about belief. You have to believe in yourself that you can do this. You have to believe that you will be able to do that thing again. But it doesn't come overnight. It's like the kid that practices 12 hours one day and nothing for 3 weeks. You can't do that. You have to practice 1 hour a day every day to slowly build up everything. The chops, of course, that's one thing, but it's the mind also controls so much of how you produce stuff. And it's very important to go slow and methodical and don't get down on yourself.
That's exactly where I was headed with the mindset as well, because I've been very lucky. I have experienced good health all my life. But I have thought in the back of my mind, and maybe you've thought about this too, Paul, what would I do, man, if I couldn't play trumpet? Because it's like eating breakfast every day for me or whatever. I got to get on it. I got to do it. I enjoy it. I have a good time. I mean, I do see people that are uninspired to practice because there's no gigs or this and that going on, but I never get tired of it. But a person like you, where your playing is at this pinnacle, this 10,
Bless you, Bobby.
to go
Thank you.
down to, starting over basically again, that has to be tough up here. And to keep yourself on track, I mean, how do you do that?
I'm 70 years old, Bobby. I've seen all the great players.
You look amazing, man. You really
I'm
do.
feeling great. I'm feeling good. Um, and I don't say this often. Matter of fact, I hardly ever say it. But when I turned 70, which just was a few months ago, things changed. The number is a big number. And when I was 68, it didn't matter. That number wasn't so big, but 70 is a bigger number. Well, I know 80 is going to be a bigger number and 90 is going to be a bigger number. And one day, I don't know when, but you're going to have to stop playing this instrument because you can't at a level that is pleasing. And of course, it's very pleasing to me to play. And I love my sound. I love what I do. I love what I can do. And I keep practicing so I can do more, I can do better. So um, the struggle, I get up every morning, and the first thing I think of is, am I going to practice today? What am I going to do to improve my skills? You know, am I cool with it or not? And the day I wake up and say, I'll just flip over and go to sleep for another 2 hours, the day I say that, I know the end is coming. And a lot of players, sort of jive themselves into thinking, well, I'll just make it up tomorrow. I won't do it today. I'm tired. I don't. Well, whatever. I don't think you can say that. I think you've got to continually keep active and keep pushing forward. Now, pushing forward doesn't mean playing more and more high notes. It might mean playing more and more sweetly. It might be finding the sweet spot for you and then developing that, to as high a degree as you possibly can. And we got to stop competing with each other. The only person to compete with is yourself. Did I do
Amen.
this better today than I did yesterday? Am I doing something now? And a little tiny do 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 do, a little tiny phrase like that, it doesn't mean much, but it does, because you raise it up a half a step. Do 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 do-do-did-and-dee-doo, do-do-did-and-dee-doo. Well, that might take you a half hour to figure out, every half a step going up or going down or different keys or whatever. But every little thing you do helps because it clears roads in your mind. It clears the presence of how to play one note next to the other. Intervals, of course, are so important because that's your intonation. The first interval, doo dee doo dee, that's your intonation right there. So you have to figure out the smallest things and work on those little things. Practicing does not have to. Okay, remember this. Number one, practice does not have to hurt. It doesn't have to hurt when you play. Matter of fact, it shouldn't hurt when you play. We're not in the Louis Armstrong era where it's like get the horn, blow it as hard as you can, get some sounds out and run with it. No. The main problem with a lot of players is that they want to play too much too fast. And that's where, of course, the bzzz comes into your lips because it doesn't let the blood, flow freely. There's a stop right there because you've pressed on it so much. So you gotta, of course, you can't play without pressure, but you gotta play with the minimum amount of as possible. And so Yuan also talked so much to me about your head, about playing beautiful, about I get a little misty and I talk about him because he's so important. Every time I take out my horn, I think of him. And whenever I do something that's really sort of nice, I think of him. Thanks, Yuan.
Didn't he talk about playing the word that I read that he always used and other people that I know that studied with him was reverence. You have to play with reverence and respect. Yes.
Respect to the music. He described music as an entity that you need to take care of, that you respect, that you blow beautifully, that you give love, you put love into the instrument to and it translates through the horn into the tone. I mean, I wish I could see him now, but I'll see him again. I just recorded a song yesterday, We'll Be Together Again. And a friend of mine and I are doing I'm finally doing a project of the classic jazz material. The touch of your lips, you go to my head. I mean, after recording this record, I said, I want to do that. And I want to put it out on YouTube just for free. So when I get about 3 or 4 or 5 songs, I'll put them out there. And, just Bobby plays the standards. And
we'll make sure we put a link out to your YouTube channel as well. Underneath this.
That is so important for all of us because you can make it private, you can make it public. It's so very important, and you need to believe in yourself. I mean, that's always the bottom line. Bullies will come and go, but you will always be there and have to pick up your own pieces and move on with your life.
And I think that's important. Some of us like me, for those of you that don't know, Bobby and this Bobby and that Bobby, we're both from East Los Angeles, although I spent more years later on in my life down in the Orange County area, but I'm from there. And we share certain things in common, I've always thought, but you've been like a big inspiration to a lot of people. And I have been lucky to have come from a really supportive family, but there are people that I know that have not come from a supportive family at all, especially being in the music business or whatever. So I think it's important to hear this because ultimately your family in a lot of cases, like in my case, they supported me, but they said, we don't know anything about the music, the music business. So all we can tell you is go ask as many questions as you can and get a degree in music maybe. And so that's what I did. What was your situation like, Paul?
I was also in a very supportive family. My mom, I mean, she was just driving nonstop between me and my sister with her ballet and me with, you know, private lessons and every community band and college band that she could get me in, 4 or 5 days a week. I was busy, and all thanks to her. My dad also very supportive, but
Beautiful.
he was the guy making the money, and she was the gal driving us around, being the taxi
Beautiful.
service, and it was amazing.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Well, that's cool.
But
That
Well,
wasn't my scene. That didn't happen
what
for
was
me.
what was yours like?
Mine was, I want to play the trumpet, Mom. No. I want to play the trumpet. No. 2 years. I want to play the trumpet. No. So I've always been a guy who could figure out stuff, how to get something working. Well, I figured out clean my room. She liked it, but no. Um, get good grades in school. She always talked about that. Get good grades, get good grades. Whatever. No. I finally found the answer when I was about 10. I started taking out the trash. After dinner, took it out, threw it away, came back. Okay, she finally said, yeah. So I never had the support. Well, because my mother was a single mom, basically a secretary, uh, since I was about 7 years old. And my father was a truck driver. He drove trucks for Farmer John, and so that was his life there. And so I don't come from anywhere of educated thought. My mom learned her job on the job, and my father, of course, he was a trucker all of his life, and they're both really good people, but they had no forward thinking as to what I was talking about when I said I want to play the trumpet, and it was always the same thing. So you want to play the trumpet? Okay, okay. What else are you going to do? Okay, what else are you going to do? No, I'm not going to do anything else. I'm going to do that. But what if? No, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that. Okay. Well, everything was going really pretty good. I was, a hot little cat in high school and getting out of school and went to the service, played my trumpet for 3 years in the Army. And that was fun. And, you grow up and as you go and you always think and you hope that the dream doesn't leave you because that's the dream. So you want to do this. So after I came home for 3 years, all I thought about when I got home, I was going to do one thing. I was going to make my record and I was going to be a star. Well, I made the record, but I wasn't a star. So I realized, wait a minute, that concept didn't work very well. So you had to rethink the process and then what was it? So 24, 20, about 5, 6 years later, I almost finished Cal State Long Beach because that's where I ultimately got my first degree, and then went on the road with Quincy Jones, which led to the Brothers Johnson, and you can still see some of those Brothers Johnson videos on YouTube.
I have.
And
I have.
there I am. It's
the
unbelievable.
jumpsuit.
Yeah, the jumpsuit, the different things, and the magic of Lewis Johnson on bass, of course, was a big piece of that.
Mm-hmm.
But when I got off the road at 30, um, I told my wife at the time, let's have a baby. So she agreed to the point, and we had our little Robin Star, and we had a pretty poor, impoverished life for about 4 years after being together for about 7 years, and the house payments and bills and reality, it wasn't easy, and so unfortunately we broke up. But I did have a bug in my head about finishing my schooling because no one that I knew in my family had finished college, could say I have a degree in so and so. So I just started taking my classes, going back to school, re-meeting the people that were there, 15 years before, and trying to. My pup is over here bugging me. She wants some love too, and so I just took one class at a time, and little did I know, by the 7, 8 years that had passed, there were a lot more requirements. So finally, I got my degree, and immediately, almost without a blink, I said, "What would it be like if oh really okay if I got a master's degree? Wow, Master Bobby, that's unbelievable." And so the same thing happened when I finished my master's degree at USC for 1 year, and then Cal State LA for 1 year. Finished, and then I decided to go on to get my doctorate degree. And of course, there's all the hoops and jumps and
It sounds easy when you're just talking about it, but
Oh,
I know
man.
it's a lot of work and there's a lot of years and there's a lot of late nights and all this stuff that people don't realize from the outside necessarily.
No, it's hard. It's very hard. It's what college is all about. Ultimately, it's not about the knowledge. It's like going to music school. It's usually you don't learn the information in the classroom. You learn the information out in the streets with your friends, working together and playing, jam sessions and just being together. Okay, and then there's, to some extent, you learn the process because of assignments, and you learn that you have to finish the assignment, and then you have to finish it well. It has to be written well. It has to be presented correctly, and as you go up in the echelon, it gets more and more particular, into finally the dissertation, which is a small book about whatever your topic is about,
Mhm.
and it has to have every punctuation, dot, period, quotes, everything just absolutely perfect, and for you to get the stamp of approval. And that's a lot of walking. I wore out, I don't know, 15 pairs of shoes walking across campus, walking across campus, walking across campus. But everything was for the betterment of feeling good about myself. And what college does for you is to make you understand deadline. You have to complete the deadline. You have to get it done by a certain point, certain day, certain hour, whatever it is, and it has to be correct. So that's a very important part of the college experience. I never did the dorm thing because I was always so close enough to be always home and driving in, going to school, coming back. And a couple of the teachers I had were just magnificent. First, John Prince over at Cal State Long Beach, he was magnificent. And then there's a few others that are just will be burned in my memory because they really. Malcolm Cole over at UCLA, he was very important to me as well. And some others that you don't even know they're coming, and then all of a sudden they're in your face, and you either shy away or you get busy and take care of the requirements.
And then
And
there's
then
some long-term benefits and inspirations and things that stick in your memory. It's just like for me with you, I think about certain things we've done together in the past. And I know we're almost out of time, so I don't want to wax on too much here, but to a lot of people, and I know because I've spoken to a lot of people over the years, even though maybe we haven't spoken as often as we should, but I'd run across cats, hey man, you remember this? What about Bobby, man? That guy was a great player. What a nice guy. What a knowledgeable player. What a this and that. And everybody sees you as, and I certainly do, as an inspirational person and somebody that, even though I actually said the same thing to Bobby Shue, because he's basically a person that is I consider my mentor. I mean, there's a lot of us out there that I think we wouldn't be where we are at and had the success and the connections and learned a lot of things if it weren't for people like you, man. And I do mean that from the bottom of my heart, and I know there's a lot of people out there that do. So for you go from one place to where you're at and show that it can be done means a
It
lot
could be done, but you got to be
to
careful.
everybody.
You always have to be careful of your decisions, because what you decide today will affect you tomorrow. And the relationship is something that nobody really talks too much about. The relationship between, you and your partner, whoever that is so important, because having the wrong partner, you make bad decisions, and then have the right partner, and then you talk about everything, you work together towards a forward motion, and you make better decisions. When I was a kid, I grew up, I was born in 1950, so 1960, 62, 65, 60, whatever it was. I mean, the image of Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay, that guy, changed my life in that, after his not being able to fight for 3 years and coming back, losing to Joe Frazier, getting up and saying, well, I just got to get myself together and keep moving. He didn't quit. He didn't sit down there and cry and just, poor me, poor me. I think he made $5 million for that fight, so he was pretty happy after the fight, even though he lost. But to see a career like that go and develop, where you just one challenge after another, and I don't mean just in the ring. I mean in life, in the ring as well, in his style, how it changed from very energetic before his conviction, and then after he was more mature, he was bigger, he was stronger, he was fast, but not as fast, but fast. And I mean, I'm thinking the same thing about myself, not to compare myself with that grandmaster, but to compare myself with me, to know what I've done and I mean, some of the things I've done are really amazing. And all I did every time I was presented with a challenge, I just did my best. And you do the best you can, and you leave the decision to other people, because we don't have decision power. We have to let someone else decide. Let's accept him. Let's bring him in. Let's not bring him in. I mean, we haven't even talked about the politics in university systems. I mean, it's pretty incredible.
Well,
and how people live in that system for 15, 20, 30 years.
Well, that'll have to be we'll have to bring you back and do a part 2 on this, because you have so much to offer. And, but for right now, I know we're running out of time. I'm going to end with, we'll end with something real quick, real fun. We are going to do a lightning round with you. And just there's no right or wrong answer. We're just going to ask you a couple of questions, and why don't you tell us what the first thing that comes to mind? You want to go first, Paul?
I do. What's your very favorite city that you've ever toured or visited in the world?
I like Chicago.
Chicago.
Yeah. Had a
Why
very
is
good
that?
experience in Chicago, because I can't tell you why.
Okay.
I don't want to tell you why.
Okay.
It was a beautiful city, and we had a beautiful time there, and it's nothing but a great experience.
And what's your favorite book?
The one I read yesterday, the one I finished yesterday, Satchmo by Louis Armstrong.
Ooh, all right. Who wrote that one?
Satchmo.
Oh, it was his own. Oh,
yes.
I guess I didn't realize he had that. I'm gonna have to check that out.
You have to check out anybody who trumpeted. Blah, blah. Louis Armstrong wrote 3 books, and you gotta check him out, because it's beautiful. It's beautiful the way he thinks and writes.
All right. Well, thank you for that. I will check that out, Bobby. Dr. Bobby Rodriguez, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us here. It's a joy to see you, and keep on keeping on, as Clark Terry used to say.
Paul and Bobby, anytime you want me, I'll be there.
All right. Thank you so
for
much.
having me today.
Thank you, Bobby.
Stay positive. We will get back to work. God bless.